So my name is Samuel, and I'll be taking over for this session. So today's session really is titled Understanding Instructional Design. And I'll go ahead and share my slide. So understanding instructional design. And my guess is that we have some seasoned instructional designers, uh, transitioning instructional designers, and maybe you're just curious about what instructional design is. What do we do? This will be a good forum to get a brief overview of what we do, and then we're even going to try out an instructional design tool, which hopefully will help you make up your mind. So a little bit about me. I am an instructional designer and e-learning developer. I currently work with Starbucks I'm a remote partner, so I work from home, but our headquarters is here in Seattle, Washington. And I've been in the L&D space for about 10 years now. And in that time have served in different capacities. So whether it's being an instructional designer, a senior instructional designer, facilitator, or content writer at some point. And if you even dial it way back, it's I had a background in advertising and marketing when I was in Nigeria before I moved here to the States. So all of those experiences have accumulated together to give me the skill set that I need to survive or to function as an instructional designer in today's world. Um, so I have worked with a number of global organizations, probably 8 jobs in the last 10 years. I usually get bored and just think about moving, and that has happened a few times, but for a good reason though. So, and we'll talk about what that means for you as time goes by. So I have experiences in various mentoring roles, including assistant transition teachers and job seekers. So I've had people reach out to me on LinkedIn about the field, wanting to know more, and always happy to share. I also volunteer at the ATD Fort Worth Mid City. So ATD really is the Association for Talent Development. So kind of like how you have OLXD in Nigeria, ATD is what we have here. And I was fortunate to be one of the presidents in 2022, which was a learning experience for me. Just being in that leadership role taught me a lot of lessons. And I was able to hone in on that skill and help a lot of um, a lot of folks along the way. So that's enough about me. Let's dive into why we're here, right? Awesome. So what is instructional design, and what do instructional designers do? Instructional design really, when I discovered it, it was through someone that I sat next to at a job where I was taking an internship, and I just really was fascinated by the conversations she was having, talking to subject matter experts. I just really was fascinated about all of that, helping people learn and solving problems. So I had a 5 minutes conversation, and it didn't take long for her to convince me at all. Um, and one of the things she told me was exactly what you're seeing on the screen here. Instructional designers help create effective, engaging learning experiences for learners. So it's really all about the learner. Um, so knowing your audience and how they like to learn is one thing that instructional designers really do do research on and try to put learning in a way that makes sense to the learner. So we draw from best practices from other fields like psychology, especially. So knowing the human psychic and how humans learn really will help you create learning that is effective and makes sense for the learner. So we use a variety of other methods like creative writing, e-learning, especially. That's one that I'm passionate about, and we'll actually go over a tool that I use most often. So particular Storyline 360 in today's session. But it doesn't always have to be e-learning as well. It could also be in-person trainings. You could have an instructional designer who works in a face-to-face situation as well. So, and virtual learning is also one that is being used often nowadays. And if you're wondering about that, you're inside of a virtual learning situation right now. So, if you've ever taken a course on your company's LMS, you've taken an e-learning, and instructional designers put those together. And how they do that, instructional designers collaborate with subject matter experts who are your SMEs. They are knowledgeable about the subject. They can help you with the points that you need to know and point you in the right direction and vet your content to make sure that it's what the learner really needs to know and that it's accurate information. But our job as instructional designers is really to hone in on those case studies, present those examples, and present information in a way that's lean and effective. And a lot of the statistics that I'm presenting here, they are from here in the US. So it may look a little different than what we have in Nigeria, Kenya, Ghana, wherever you're joining from. It may look a little different. So, I think do your own research. Um, you can't be a good instructional designer if you don't do your own research. So um, just take this for what it is. These are the average prices based upon what I was able to research. So you have the first one is, the average instructional design salary starts at, no, the average is 86,000 thereabout, but I've seen a lot of I've seen some instructional designers make as much as 170,000 or upwards of that as well. So take it for what it is. I always tell people it's based upon your own value, how you can sell yourself. That's what you get paid for. The annual job growth, I think it's a little higher than 10%. I would imagine that's going up even as we speak because a lot of companies are starting to realize the value of instructional design. Why fly people all over the country? Why fly trainers all over the country when you can um, create an e-learning that's able to scale up and help more people, and you spend less. So that's one way to look at it. Another way to look at the benefits is instructional designers can work remotely, like I'm doing right now. I've been remote for about 2 years, and it was a conscious decision, right? So, not to say that it works for everybody, but we have different reasons why we decide to make decisions in our lives. But that was one decision for me. I really enjoyed collaborating with people, talking face to face, but at the same time, I didn't want to be in that situation where I had to justify every single second of the day. But working from home has changed all of that. I am able to set my own schedule, work at different odd times of the day whenever I want to. I still put in my hours, but don't feel watch as much. But that's just me. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about what IDs do. And like I shared on the first few slides, we talk to subject matter experts who are really the backbone because they know the subject, but they don't have the experience that we have. They're more theoretical, right? They know the subject, but they don't know how to translate that information to the learner. But an ID would probably be hired as a consultant. You're doing the fact finding, you're doing the job task analysis, you're delving deeper into the psychology of the situation. What do the learners really need to know? So, what information, is there any data that backs this up? Has there been any feedback received where learners are having issues with this particular problem. Maybe, I mean, and you can think of a number of examples for that. So is it a compliance issue? Is sexual harassment on the rise? Cyber attacks on the rise? What's going on? Instructional designers come in and kind of figure out, pinpoint the problem and try to solve it. And they use a variety of methods. So an instructional designer through getting information from needs analysis, they may decide to use e-learning, you know, or other methods to solve the problem. And so in a case where maybe e-learning is decided, they want to talk maybe in a kickoff meeting. They can talk to the subject matter experts and just really figure out what the problem is and start to draw up some objectives based upon that problem. And then start to write content that is tailored towards that problem. And that could look like a variety of things. It could look like a storyboard that they develop. And storyboards really are easy. It's just think of it as a table. You have what's happening on screen. You have what's in text and what should be narrated. So voiceovers, and this has practical use in other fields as well, like filmmaking. Um, so having a storyboard in place with your really could help with your SME, help them understand where you're going, and they can make any adjustments before the e-learning build starts, because e-learning builds actually take a lot of time and they're expensive. So you don't want to finish a build and then discover you haven't written good objectives or you're not actually tackling the problem you're trying to solve. But that's one way to look at it. And if you have any other suggestions for what storyboarding is, do you use storyboards? I would like to know in the chat. Feel free to drop a message if you're able to. Awesome. So instructional designers may also develop job aids, facilitator guides, and there's also technical writing, which technical writing really is can be found in fields like engineering, anything that just seems technical in nature. So distinct steps like step one, step two. Think about you're trying to put together furniture and you have a manual that's solid technical writing right there because it's very succinct. It's each step is distinct from the other one. If you miss a step, you absolutely kind of have to go back. So that's also one form of instructional design manual. If you've ever read a manual, you're reading material created by an instructional designer. Um, so what other types of instructional design that we have? We have corporate academia. So corporate really is using authoring tools to build interactive e-learning. Academia, uh, instructional designers in academia may be the ones managing courses inside of an LMS. And then LMS really is a learning management system. So think of a website or something where courses are hosted. So uh, an LMS is a piece of software purchased by a company where they host all of their e-learning courses. So it really deals with e-learning, especially or specifically, not especially. Um, so you're able to push out trainings to the learners. You're able to record their behavior in those trainings, and in some cases, you're able to provide reports to your SMEs to say, okay, this number of people are taking this course. Here's the completion rate. Here's a cadence. Here's how often we think you should push out this training. Is it a compliance course that they have to take every year? Those may be all decisions that an ID has to make. And as you hear me talk, this is 10 years of experience. It's not something you need to know all of at once starting out. So just I think pace yourself. Just as you start to hear about this concept, it starts to become second nature. So there are also in-house designers who will build this course, will build the e-learning courses, but in some cases, the program has a large scope. Companies may employ vendors to build the trainings. So vendors could include folks offshore, so in different countries, or it could also be local vendors who offer the services. How to become an instructional designer. You can learn about the instructional design theories. So ADDIE is a good place to start. The methodology, which is just a specific linear way of thinking about it. So analysis, design, development, implementation, evaluation. You can you can learn about the theories. You can also start to develop your technical skills. So learn different programs. Particularly Storyline is recommended because it feels a lot like PowerPoint, and we'll go over that in about 2 minutes. You also, if you're a visual designer, most people that have interest in instructional design are. So you can start to use some of your graphic design perspectives to build great e-learning. And you should also build your portfolio. So a portfolio is the new resume, but I wouldn't advise starting out with a portfolio or just making a portfolio for the sake of it. I think it's better to just start looking for different challenges. On my part, I take part in the e-learning challenges. I also sometimes would find a tweet that I liked and just start to build a course off of the tweets. Uh, but it's just having that learning mindset and wanting to build. So the more you practice, the better it gets. And you have Chat GPT now, so really there's no excuse for, oh, I can't create my own content. You can ask Chat GPT to build a course for you, and you can start to develop it inside a Storyline or Rise, and you can create free accounts for either one of those and start to build. Um, Building your instructional design portfolio. I think I already talked about that. Networking with other instructional designers like you're doing right now is really going to help you in your journey. Creating, I already talked about that. Okay, I think we'll just skip and move on to the types of tools that we use as IDs. There's Articulate Storyline 360 and Captivate, which is made by Adobe, but it's really a disappointment as far as what the tool looks like. But different perspectives. Some folks may like it, or that may be all they've used, and but I'm just being real here. There's also Beyond, which is an animation tool. So these characters are from Beyond. I use Beyond a lot just for making different animation. It lets you quickly um, build animations, but it's a bit pricey as far as getting the license. And I don't think they do have a trial version, but it leaves a watermark on your video export, so it may not be the best situation. But yeah, just know it's an option. So Storyline and Rise is what we're going to be talking about today. Yeah, so this is Storyline. It looks a lot like PowerPoint, depending on what version of PowerPoint you're using. So think about it as PowerPoint on steroids, as someone has described it. And what it really is it's an authoring tool. So it lets you author, so program, author e-learning courses using a variety of elements. So what you're really trying to build is kind of a web interface that people can interact with and learn from. So you're doing that using a variety of elements. You have all of these tools available to you, and it takes some time to get familiar with them. But these tools have also changed over the years. So here you have your home tab. It has a bunch of tools. If it's not highlighted, that means you may need to select an element and stage before it's highlighted. That's why you don't have these options available. So you can't really click until you have something highlighted. Um, so what you most likely use a lot of times is the insert tab. So this insert tab presents a number of menu items, and there's a tooltip. So each time you hover over each one, you see the definitions. It's telling you what they do, how to, and just clicking on them will present even more options, right? So oftentimes you're trying to mix text and images in a way that makes sense for the learner. So one way would be to add a text box, for example. If you click on that, it instantly you see crosshair. You see the plus sign right there. You can drag it out, or you can just click and begin typing. So let's just say the title of this presentation is understanding instructional design. Okay, so you're trying to in this example trying to maybe build an e-learning that's for understanding instructional design. So instantly you're wondering, okay, what do I do with this text? There are a number of things you can do because now you can see on that same home button, you have these options that all become active because now you've selected something. You went to select, it goes away. And one thing I would do is change the font style and go for something that's bold. Since this is a cover page, to add color, you can just right click on the page, go to format background, and select your color from here. So understanding instructional design, blue seems like a good corporate color to use. You can drag your slider to choose what color you want, and you can select just anything you're comfortable with from this page. But this is just one way to design, right? And when you do that, you could do close all. But if you want to apply that color to all of your slides, you can click apply to all. But let's just say close all. And now, you're thinking about accessibility. Like, is this font, does it stand out from the background a lot? I don't think so. So it may make sense to change it to another color. So that goes into, you can get into color contrast, what makes sense. I would just suggest white for this, but there may be other colors that make sense too. So since we're adding an image, it makes sense to break this down into three. But does this take away from, does the way we're presenting this information, does it take away from the title, from the learner reading it? You can argue, you can get into the psychology of that. Like, is it easier to read it all as one sentence, or does it help to break it down this way? I think it looks visually appealing, so there's a balance. You can also go to inserts and add a character to it. So, and your characters could look, we have photographic characters, you have illustrator characters, and you can, each time you click on any style here, it kind of updates your options. So if you click on photographic, all the avatars go away. So now you're focused on just photographic. If you want just male, you can click male. If you want male and female, you can bring that back, but it's kind of selecting for you. You can even change the age range. Uh, so let's go with Sarah right here. And we can also change her pose up here. So understanding instructional design, it just seems maybe she's even calling more attention to, maybe she's calling attention to the text. So you're using that, you're always thinking about you're adding elements intentionally, right? So, why would it make sense for us to scale her up that way and not like this? Because with this, it's not calling attention as much. It looks like she's floating. There's no base. You start to think about all of those things as you create. So Let's maybe have her to the side, or maybe she's not. Maybe she has a different pose, right? So maybe the face isn't matching what's going on. We can replace the pose right here, go back to pose, and just go for something simpler. Maybe she's just happy about presenting about instructional design. And these are all skills you probably use in your PowerPoint anyways, uh, which is why to make this easier for you, it's better to think of it as PowerPoint. So just like in PowerPoint, you can add a theme, which lets you quickly add a different color, a different background, then it starts to make sense. Like, because your goal not only is to build, but also sometimes to build quickly, depending on the number of projects you're working on. So you're making those decisions as you go along. But to so this could be your cover page, and to add a new slide, you right click on the existing slide and you go to basic layout. You could do a blank, or you could just duplicate what you have and just Command C, Control V, or you could right click and duplicate it anyways, and start over again or delete the elements that you have and begin to type. But for this case, so you have your cover page, you're trying to move on to something else, you can click on your text box, maybe have your objectives. I don't know what that looks like, but it could be objectives one and so on. So copy, paste, bunch of objectives. And I'm just showing you the hard way right now. I'm going to show you the easy way in a bit. So don't go away. You can increase the font size so it makes more sense. You could add bullets depending on the types of objectives you have. So I used to do things like this when I was just starting out with storyline, and then I discovered the templates, right? So go into slides and go into the content library. You can, you already have some pre-built. This was even way before AI, so you already have some pre-built templates that you can select from. So why would you want to build it the hard way when you can build the easy way? So I would maybe select welcome and but that's just going to insert that one slide. But that's not what you want. You want the opening, you want the title section, you want content. So this is offering you different content types, right? So actually, let's add this first so you see the difference. So just click and insert. We'll add this layout. So maybe you don't like the image, right? You can just go somewhere and find images. There are a number of places to find images, Getty, FreePic, and a number of others. But would you agree that this title is a little better than what we first created? So maybe you take that and add over here, or you may want to paste it paste it without the format, so that's easier. And there's flexibility with this as well. You can always adjust it in a way that makes sense or that works for you for what you're creating, right? So you may want to make that. Okay, looks like. Sorry, I hope I'm not complicating. So really, all I'm describing here is the use of the content library. So the content library has some pre-built elements that makes it easier for you to build. You can take that same element and add it here. then it starts to make sense, right? So in the same vein, you can go back to the content library, you can pick something else. So maybe you're looking for just like a content slide, but you kind of have to look and see what. So choosing all four of these are different content types under the same template. So essence is one, vitality is one. So this is all for vitality, right? So if you set those three extra slides, things look the same, and you're able to transition. It's using the same font type, the same. So this is an objective slide, for example. You can use that as your objective slide, uh, but that's just one way. So you can program this to work with whatever you're working with. You can change the icons, however granular you want to get. But I think it may make sense to talk a little bit more about how we add. Let me format the background once more so it doesn't have. I feel like I got lost when I added the black background. So let's talk a little bit more about, just the different elements you can add, right? So you have your text, you have your shapes. So this is just one way to add shape. There are different reasons why you may add shape. You can have shape to call attention to something, or you may want to build an interactivity out of the shape. Um, those are, or you may, if you want to call attention to a text box, for example, you could use a text box and just type inside of it. So item one, increase the font size. You can duplicate that. And so Control C, Control V would help you duplicate that item. So you have two items. And these are all things you can do to build your course. So to start to I think I'm just trying. My goal really is to just show you how flexible and show you the different tools we have inside of Storyline. And again, you can add video to your course. Storyline has a number of videos inside of the media library where you can or you can bring in a video that you've created from a file you've created. For example, I've created this animation. I could just bring it in and it's on my slide. You can add it to your slide in ways that make sense, right? According to the course you're building. You can also, and here's one way to preview this. You could go to preview and hit preview this slide. And that just brings up your animation. So one way to think about this is as you're building, right? Storyline has a slide to slide navigation. So you can move from one slide to the other. And that's all inside of your player controls, which, we can talk about that now or at a later time. But this is really just a quick introduction. It would take you actually downloading Storyline and testing it out to see what makes sense for you. So you can get a script from somewhere and start to build a course. So using different elements, it's just the way you're interpreting that element, keeping your learner in mind, like how they receiving this information, what are they going to do with this information, how can I best present a scenario in a way that engages them, that helps them stop to think. It's not just all about interactivity. How do they engage with the subject? Is what the goal is. You can also add audio. So let's say you want to add some narration to the slide. You can go to audio, text to speech. You can say select from item one and two. And you look for the best voice to say that. Normally, I would go with Danielle. She has one of the most natural voices as far as storyline goes, and you can generate closed captions if you wanted. That's just closed captioning for which increases your accessibility. And then just click insert. I can't share my voice right now, my audio right now. It would require me to stop sharing, but the audio is down here. You can always go back and edit it or just leave it as is. And yeah, but there's still a number of things you can add. You can add a table, you can add, but the basics is what this is, right? Text, images, video. You can start to get into other things like adding markers, slide numbers. Those are a bit more um, just based upon preference and not necessarily driving the information that you're presenting. So just some things to think about. You can also think about how this, like if you didn't add any animation to this, it's it's not terrible, right? But what if you added animation to it? It's animation only helps the learner. Animation draws the attention of the learner to what you're presenting. So think about that. If it moves, your learner is going to notice it. Um, so how do we, if we want them to focus on item one and not two, we can add an animation just by going to the animation tab and maybe do a fly-in, maybe flying from the left. If we were to preview this, which one would you notice first? You probably would notice one because it moved. But yeah, that's just it's a great program, and they keep adding new features and making it more interactive, which is really the goal. So the more you improve your skill set or play around, you start to build on those skills. You can even add assessments. You can record your screen. You can just there are different things you can do use a storyline. But this is just an overview, and I know at some other point I think in the next session we're going to dive a little bit more into things you can do with storyline, like actual building actual courses, actual cases. I'll be presenting a course that doesn't have interactivity, and then we'll have another course that's built with interactivity, and we can see what the difference is and determine which one is more effective. So the player control is really you're just telling storyline how you want your course to display to the learner. So accessibility is really a way to present information in multiple ways where because we're all different, right? Some learners have disabilities, some learners cannot distinguish between colors, they can't distinguish, they want closed captioning, for example. I always watch movies with closed captioning. So why not give your learner that option, right? It is how I think about it. So the way you do that is to go to your player controls. Here, you can start to make those selections. For example, adding the menu to the right is it just takes one click. So, you know, it makes sense to do it anyways. That lets your learner jump from slide to slide. Maybe they want to go back and review a topic they already covered. They can make that selection right here. And it's always a good practice to name your slides. So that name appears inside of this menu. Now, you can also make other selections. So maybe you have a glossary of terms that's usually maybe it's a compliance course or health related course. There are a lot of words that may not necessarily make sense, but you don't want to start defining those right on the spot inside of your course. You can have a glossary of terms where the learner can refer to you and kind of figure things out. So if you have those, you check the glossary, but if you don't, there's no need to check that. So it really depends on what you have. If you have resources, some downloadable readings or charts, infographic they can take a look at. It'll be good to check your resources, but make sure you have actual resources before checking that. And here's where you add your resources, but let's stick to the features for now. Um, Here's where you can title your presentation. So understanding instructional design. If you don't want that title to appear, you can disable it. I usually just leave it because the learner, it's a good reminder for them to see why they're taking the course, depending on what the title says. Now, if you want the sidebar to start collapse, you can do that, where the hamburger menu, if they see that, they may decide to click it anyways, but also a good option to leave it open. Uh, you can also add your company logo from here. So let's say this is my company logo. I'm just going to go with a random image. Yeah, that could be a company logo. You can add a cover page. You can also disable the logo to delete it. You can add a cover page, which that's that's just an option. You can, depending on what your course is about or how you want it to look. And here you can add the volume control. So if your course has audio, giving the learner the option to increase or decrease that volume. Captions is always a good one to have if you actually have captions. But if you don't, there's no need to add the caption. But if you're using text to speech, it's a good practice to always add captions anyways. Playback speed, that's a little, yeah, that's just a zoom in that some learners prefer to skip through the course or they want the course to read a little slower. Then that's one way to enable that option. I haven't used it a lot, but it's an option for you. And it's not just video, so that controls all of your course. You can always check the accessibility controls. Um, I guess that helps in some way if you're using a screen reader, for example. You can also check the full screen, which lets the learner, the course appears full screen. Um, it could be a good thing or a bad thing. Search, um, yeah, I think that's just for finding words within your course, depending on how lengthy your course is. You shouldn't be creating a lengthy course in any case. So sig bar, that's usually helpful for the learner. They can drag the sig bar as they learn, so they can skip ahead or just giving the learner more control is always advised. Just having giving them those options depending on your learner. So again, that goes into knowing who your audience is. Who are you talking to? If are they technical? Are they, if you're training more than 50 people, there's more likelihood that someone may need some form of accessibility. So just being conscious about that. You can also leave the sig bar as read only where they can see it, but they can't drag it. You can also allow drag after completion. And with your menu items, you can start to structure this. So maybe this is related to, maybe these are the sub models for this one model. You can start to arrange them in that way where you can knock this one out a little bit. So this becomes one, and this becomes maybe 1.1 and 1.2 and so on. And so maybe this becomes two. You know what I mean? Like just arranging those sub menus is something you may need, but keeping them organized. So if you have a very lengthy course, this helps with organization. And you can even disable all of your menus. So taking all that away presents a plain. Um, Presentation, depending on what you're building, sometimes it's necessary to do that, but oftentimes I would leave it. Color and effect, here's where you can change the color of your storyline course, depending on your company's brand. You may want to leave it as light, as white, or black, or you can add a custom color. So if you're working for MTN, for example, you can change that to yellow to match their company branding. And you can also change the accessibility focus, which is just telling the it's I think showing where the highlights is, but that's also getting into preferences. Navigation button, you can increase the font size of your navigation. I usually do. So if you increase that to 150, this starts to get larger and easier to see. Closed captioning, you can increase the font size to 150 as well, which makes it a bit larger to see. And yeah, there are other options as well, but you know, it really depends on what you're building. Hit OK. All those settings have been applied. If you were to preview the entire course now, see all of the changes were made. You know, the header is there, the resources are there, the captions, and everything else. The menu is opening up like we wanted to. Um, yeah, and you know, let's talk a little bit about states. So with the state menu, you can change, you can add different states to each item. So you can have the hover state, you can even have like a Vista state. So with the hover state, so it's created duplicates of the same item. Instead, which item are we working on? Sorry, I got lost there. So we're working on this item, right? And it's created different states of this one item. If the line should hover over it, you may want it to turn to red. And maybe after the visit, you want it to turn to you want to add a check mark, right? So you can go to icons, add check, and that's just telling the learner, oh, you already clicked this. Uh, Not to say they wouldn't know, but it just helps with the learning process. So let's say this is a button that reveals something else. So maybe it's got text under it. You can say this is item one. So maybe this starts out as invisible, right? So hidden, you can make that start out as hidden. So if you were, so, and you can have this reveal that text under it. So this is getting into interactive, right? So you go to triggers, go to create new trigger, and you say change the state of text box, and you know there's a visual cue so you know what you're clicking on. Change the state of text box one, set it to normal, which is what it should be when the user clicks rectangle one. Because right now, it's not normal, it's hidden, right? So, and when you click on that box, what do you think will happen? Hold on. Sorry, this icon should actually be inside of the Vista state. So yeah, just making sure that I'm in the Vista state. If you were to, I know I'm talking a lot. So we see our item, you hover over it, it changes to red, and when you click it, that item appears, and this also tells you you've already clicked this item. So now you know what you haven't clicked, which is this one, which will probably have its own actions too, and you can start to just build. I mean, there's so many things, applications you can use this for. It could be an avatar, maybe not a box. It could be something else. It could be a click and reveal. But the whole goal is to not overwhelm the learner when they get to your page. So you can, instead of just adding a bunch of text, you can have them fetch that information as they move along. So they're taking part in learning process. You're involving them as opposed to just pushing content at them. The storyline course we just built, you can publish that by just going to publish, and you can publish it for the LMS. Choose a location on your computer where you want it to land. Want it to land in downloads, and then select that folder. You can choose the options you want, report it to an LMS. SCOM 1.2 is the preferred option when you're exporting your course. You can, if it has assessment, you can select how you want that tracked. But so you hit OK, and then so you're still on your LMS, right? And you have everything that you need. Now you can hit publish. And it publishes what it's publishing is a SCOM file. And what that SCOM file is really, sometimes you likely want to zip the SCOM file up, but if we leave it open, let's just open that SCOM file. So inside of my downloads folder, this is what we just published, and that's a SCOM file. But a SCOM file, usually you would have to zip, it would have to be zipped, which I recommend zipping it inside a storyline. Don't zip it manually. But here's a SCOM file. You're looking inside of a SCOM file. So it's got different things that makes it work. So these are all like storyline stuff. And then you have your story content, which is what's inside of the storyline course. So you can delve deep into what the slide is, the video. This is that same video that you're looking at. So if I were to click this, it will be that same animated video, right? But it's all inside of that SCOM file, which, so it's got a manifest, which is what triggers whatever you're looking at. And all of that. But just to give you an idea, and this is what you load inside of your Blackboard. And with these words, I think I'll stop sharing and see if you have any questions.